about detectives in Bengal, questions of translation, anecdotes and stories about war-torn Sri Lanka, and how not to make money. But now, after a break of tea, we come to the final session for the day, which is called Rebellions and Revolutions. But before I invite the speakers on stage, I would like to remind the audience that every night, starting tonight till Monday night, the Zee Jaipur Literature Festival is going to have fantastic music nights at the Clark's Amer. We urge all of you to please come and be a part of that as much as you've been a part of the festival during the day today. We have some fantastic lineups, amazing musicians, and we hope that you would be there to enjoy the show. So now, to go on with Rebellions and Revolutions, we have readings today by Vaidehi, Karnataka, and Ananda Devi, and they will be introduced by none other than Rahul, Soni. So if I could invite the three speakers to please come up on stage. The theme for the talk is Women Uninterrupted, and now without further ado, I'm going to pass on the mic to Rahul so he can do the introduction.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and we're about to begin a session which you know is called Rebellions and Revolutions. We're going to have readings by two extraordinary women, two extraordinary writers, Vaidehi, who writes in Kannada, and Ananda Devi, who writes in French. Vaidehi, from Karnataka, is one of the most important writers working in Kannada at the moment. She writes short fiction, novels, essays, plays for children, and poetry, and is well known for her espousal of women's causes, not only in her writing but also in real life. Her short stories and novels take a deep, unflinching look at the discrimination women face in society, and she wields her pen as a tool for social transformation. For her work, she has received numerous prizes, numerous literary awards such as the Sahitya Academy Award, the M.K. Indra Award, and the Katha Award. Ananda Devi, from Mauritius, first made her mark at the age of 15 by winning a short story competition open to all Francophone countries. Since then, in a career spanning almost 40 years, she has risen to become one of the most important figures in French literature from the Indian Ocean. An ethnologist and social anthropologist by training, Ananda Devi's work is sensitive to the overlap of identities and languages. Her work has won her numerous awards and has been translated into various languages. And in 2010, she was made a Chevalier of Arts and Letters by the French government. So without further ado, I will hand the mic to Ananda Devi, who will first read a section of her work in French and then the translation into English.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm going to read, can you hear me? I'm going to read from No? Is it okay now? Yeah? So I'll read first in French from my latest novel that came out last year in 2013, which is called Les Jours Vivants, The Living Days. It's set in London and in the present time, and it's about a very old woman who's about 75 years old, who's called Mary Grimes, and who was young, who was 15 years old during the Second World War. And at that time, she fell in love with a young English boy from the village where she was. And they just had one encounter, one night of where they made love. And then he went to war and he disappeared. She never saw him again. And he was the only person she had ever loved, in fact. And she spends the rest of her life waiting for him. And she moves to London, and because she inherits a small house on Portobello Road from her grandfather, and she lives by doing artisanal work. And she begins to disappear almost. As she grows older, she begins to disappear from the eyes of society. It's as if she becomes invisible, like old people become in the Western world, because she doesn't have any function anymore, almost. And it's only when she meets a little Jamaican boy who's an adolescent, a teenager, that suddenly she sort of is reborn in a way to herself, to who she is. And it's through this interaction between the two of them, and a very strange kind of love story, if you like, that the whole novel is based. So I'm going to read a small part of it. Sorry for those who don't understand French, and I hope that those who do will enjoy it. And this is about Mary. Elle est seule, seule. Trop de solitude dans cette ville. On n'en peut plus. Ça vous épuise, ça vous ronge, ça vous use. Et vous n'en finissez plus de chercher à l'horizon le regard ami. Mais il n'y en a pas. Ou alors ils sont coulants comme des ficelles, comme des cordes, comme des nœuds. Montez sur une chaise pour saisir le nœud de la solitude et le glisser là, et attendre que quelque chose vous bascule. Mais quoi? Est-ce la dernière ouvrage sorti de vos mains pétrifiées de froid et de douleur? Est-ce la porte refermée chaque fois que Cub s'en va et qu'on pense qu'il ne reviendra pas, et on écoute l'écho de ses pas longtemps, longtemps, même lorsqu'il a disparu? Est-ce le matin quand il vous surplombe et que dans votre réveil s'insinue la seule lucidité du jour, mais on ne réfléchit pas parce que Cub. Mary était à genoux et avait des sanglots rauques qui ne ressemblaient à rien, ni au rire, ni aux larmes. Le plancher était en pente. Elle allait glisser, c'était sûr. Et ses mains figées dans leur posture grotesque ne pourraient s'accrocher à rien. Ses mains figées sur le rien. Ses mains qui lui avaient assuré la survie et qui n'y parvenaient plus. Elle marchait dans Portobello Road, et le bruit n'était pas un bruit, mais un feulement dans sa tête calfeutrée. C'était jour de marché, et les étals étaient gais. Les gens souriaient comme si la vie n'avait pas de prix. Tous amalgamés en une foule brassée et brumeuse dans son regard, cuivre noirci à la fumée de bois, objets si étrangement gris que l'on savait que seul le temps pouvait leur donner cette patine, sphinx ou oiseau à quatre pattes, aux boucles élaborées, provenant d'un tombeau éventré par la curiosité des hommes, meubles en bois de toutes les teintes mitraillés par les siècles, boiseries autour de miroirs longtemps fêlés ou disparus et qui n'encadraient plus que le reflet du vide, étoffes pâlies, lourds brocards qui avaient jadis susurré leur musique autour des corps féminins, longue litanie de voix, de songes, de refrains, et puis des tableaux. Il y en avait tant et tant, plus ils étaient petits et sombres, martyrisés par ces cadres trop massifs qui semblaient vouloir emmurer les regards,
plus il y avait des chances qu'il soit vraiment ancien. Mais qui pouvait avoir envie de ces espaces réduits, de ces visions étriquées et nocturnes, de nuages sur des étangs, de prés sous des chevaux, de forêts de brocéliande, de montagnes impossibles, ou au contraire de ces portraits austères au front ridiculement haut, à la mélancolique pâleur. Pas elle, qui préférait fabriquer des figurines, parfois maladroites et sans époque, plutôt que de s'environner de ces visages qui vous toisaient par-delà la mort et qui vous disaient que vous n'étiez qu'un insecte qui usurpe l'air et l'espace. Pas elle qui avait longtemps déversé tout son amour dans ses statuettes et qui devait accepter le décret qui lui interdisait cette seule consolation. Elle ne pouvait chercher dans Portobello Road qu'un souffle de vie, mais celui-ci devenait de jour en jour plus vengeur et plus implacable. Cependant, le sortilège de la rue continuait de la captiver, car ici le passé était toujours vivant, toujours présent dans les milliers d'objets volés au temps, les dentelles jaunies, les fourchettes cabossées, les poupées de porcelaine. Combien de mains, combien de cœurs, combien de corps avaient été touchés par eux, et leur poussière demeurait à travers les siècles. Rien ne s'effaçait. N'était-ce pas cela la vraie consolation? Rien ne s'effaçait. Et ainsi, lorsqu'elle disparaîtrait, son ombre serait toujours sur le trottoir, dans le regard pesant des marchands qui voyaient chaque jour changer le monde et dans l'air abîmé par tant d'effluves, et peut-être dans ces figurines qu'elle entrevoyait encore, comme perdues dans l'immensité du temps, mais si présentes, sans doute plus permanentes qu'elle ne l'était, elle. Depuis quelque temps, malgré leur apparente bonhomie, le regard des gens s'était altéré. Elle se souvenait assez clairement des remous de la guerre et des difficultés de l'après-guerre pour penser à toute la période qui avait suivi comme à une ère bénie, même si elle était restée, elle, sur le bas-côté. Qu'importait cela, puisqu'elle avait vécu. Elle avait vu changer les choses, elle avait vu s'épanouir des fleurs de béton et d'acier sur un lieu de ruines. Mais après toutes ces années, d'un seul coup, le monde s'était de nouveau effondré. Un grand trou s'était ouvert au centre de la capitale. D'abord les rumeurs et la menace d'une guerre lointaine, dont elle avait eu du mal à comprendre l'importance pour son pays. Qu'y avait-il là-bas, dans ces terres de déserts et de mythes, qu'il n'y avait eu de tout temps, se demandait-elle. Ce n'étaient pas des guerres d'idéaux, ni même de territoire. C'étaient des guerres qui portaient en elles des motifs troubles, des calculs souterrains, comme un torrent qui coulait si loin sous terre que personne à la surface ne comprenait le sens de ces remous. À la surface, ils croyaient, cela suffisait. Les gens du siècle nouveau étaient dressés pour croire à ce qu'on leur disait. 2 tours s'étaient effondrées pour les obliger à croire en l'ennemi, et surtout à croire que cet ennemi invisible pouvait être attaqué en un seul lieu. Le pire pour Mary, ce fut de voir à la télé les jeunes hommes partir en guerre. Elle les avait regardés, leurs têtes rases, leurs yeux graves, mais aux reflets mal dissimulés d'humour et d'appétit, leurs mains puissantes et noueuses, des mains de garagistes peut-être, leur bel uniforme, leur foi surtout, en quelque chose, peu importe le nom, pays, patrie, politique, il fallait y croire, puisqu'on leur avait dit qu'ils se battaient pour une juste cause, et elle les avait vus partir, ces jeunes hommes beaux, ces jeunes hommes idiots, ces jeunes hommes morts, et c'était comme si 60 ans n'étaient pas intervenus entre ces 2 guerres. Merci. You want me to continue in English? Okay, so I'm moving to English, to Indian Tango, which is a book which was published in France in 2007, and with the same title, so it's also called Indian Tango in French. And it's just come out in an English translation, well, first in America and now in India. And this is the first of my novels that's set in India. Although I am from Mauritius, my great-grandparents came from South India, from Andhra Pradesh. So in a way I've grown up in a kind of hybrid environment with a strong Indian culture, but at the same time with the Western education. And around us in the country, we spoke Creole, we learned French and English straight from kindergarten almost. And we heard Hindi, Bhojpuri, all these languages. So it's as if growing up in this kind of symphony of languages and cultures, I mixed everything up and came up writing in French, but about stories which had very often a link to this Indian background, with a lot of links to mythology, to Indian myths. And so although it's in French, it's also a bit of India in what, there's quite a bit of India in what I write, and of course a lot of Mauritius. But I thought of writing Indian tango because I wanted to talk about the transgression of a woman, and how transgression can sometimes pull you out of yourself and make you know who you are really, and how instead of following the straight and narrow path, if you like, or the set tracks that life draws in front of you, sometimes going out of these trodden paths is the best way to really start living. So one of the main characters is called Subhadra, and she's about 52 years old. She's been married for 30 years. She has adult children, and she lives with her husband and her mother-in-law in New Delhi. And the other main character is a writer from abroad who's feeling a kind of drying up of inspiration, and who comes to India to find back this inspiration. So while Subhadra is facing the kind of period in her life where she's looking at the end of her femininity or of her sexuality, so to speak, and her mother-in-law tells her we have to go on a pilgrimage with just all women together, in a kind of renunciation of her feminine self. At the same time that she's looking towards this sort of final path of her life, she meets this writer. And in fact, through the writer, she will discover the meaning of desire, and what it is to be actually aroused, and to be conscious of her body's own needs. So this is how the story is set. So I'm going to read a few extracts from it. So when it's the third person narrator, which is she and etc., it's about Subhadra, and when it says I, it's the writer. So this is a scene, the household scene in Subhadra's house with her husband Jagdish and her mother-in-law Mataji. After several minutes of gentle encouragement to soothe her wounded spirit, Mataji allows herself to be persuaded. She looks pityingly at her son. He smiles back, slightly upset. Mother and son, always hand in glove. Subhadra brings her the milk and cookies again. She nibbles at the food. Milk clings to the fine moustache decorating her upper lip. The chocolate leaves a stain on her clothes. Jagdish is reassured. He gives them a commentary on the latest news, the way he does every day, a pointless little ritual, because the television has already told them everything, but one they perform all the same, because that's what a man does, pass on his knowledge. Subhadra listens to him absently, watching two pigeons stirring up a cloud of dust on the balcony. Current events, as described by Jagdish in the telegraphic language of the newspaper, sweep forward in waves to die at Subha's feet. Clashes between Muslims and Hindus in village near Ahmedabad. 80 Muslims trampled by angry crowd. 10 Hindus impaled on stakes in revenge killings. 20 children missing. 50 women raped and disemboweled. Official victim count 150. Protesters claim 1,000. That's right, we have to take revenge, Mataji says, licking traces of chocolate and gluttony from her lips. We've let ourselves be walked over long enough. They're going to slaughter us all. Revenge, yes, that's good, that's very good. Go on. Jagdish goes on. 7 debt-ridden farmers set themselves on fire outside Parliament. Jagdish continues, unflinching, in a voice that wipes the horror from this gruesome statement. Suicidal farmers, a social trend. In Sri Lanka, Tamil tigers blow up local market. 50 dead. Tamil homes burned down in reprisals with all their contents. Furniture, animals, humans, babies, old people. What's that? Old people too? Mataji protests. No one has any respect anymore. That sin will haunt them for 1,000 years to come. On the other side of the paper, there's a headline Jagdish won't read out. Naked 10-year-old virgin torn to pieces by enraged men. Why won't he read the rest? Young slum girl displayed naked by mother. Virginity auctioned. Unsuccessful bidders furious. Girl torn to pieces after being raped by the men present. End of minor news item on back page of newspaper. But this isn't the kind of news Jagdish will read out. Jagdish reads out only items that won't shock his mother. Murdered Muslims, burned farmers, young daughters-in-law set alight by their husbands' mothers. A girl put on display, her virginity auctioned, a little animal thrown to the wolves. No, not that. That cuts too close to the bone. Mataji would be shocked, outraged. Mataji would say, these rags are always full of lies about their great non-violent country. Mataji would reject anything that might contradict the illusion of great India, home of philosophers. So this is set in 2004, so during the election time when Sonia Gandhi was thought to might become the next prime minister. So the newspaper continues. New technologies used by nationalist BJP party to persuade people to vote for it, Jagdish announces. Racist messages about Sonia Gandhi texted to millions of cell phone users. Well, yes, says Mataji. Why should that foreign woman become Prime Minister of India? As if we didn't have anyone capable here. Why doesn't she go into politics where she comes from, in England? Ma, Jagdish says gently, she's from Italy, not England. It's all the same. She's white, isn't she? She's foreign, isn't she? She's got no business in our country. And so it goes on. Jagdish speaks. Mataji adds something or gets indignant. Jagdish doesn't judge, doesn't comment. Mataji does that. The reek of fermenting resentment from her half-rotted body pervades the room. Her world is shrinking, limiting itself to this. Crimes, murders, revenge killings, a gangrene of hatred invading the worn-out body that is India. When night falls and you can't find within yourself the secret comfort of words anymore, when your hands no longer reach toward the keyboard to draw forth what you hoped would be your own blossoming of love and fury, into that distant flow, it's sometimes possible to capture just by shutting down your thoughts and opening yourself to its difficult temptations. When all that's left to you is waiting, and the emptiness of waiting, then there's no bastion left standing against the razor wire of night. How can the story of a drying up be told? There's nothing more boring, more despicable than writers telling their own story, as if they believed readers had only one desire, to put their lives on hold for a few hours and follow someone else's, where the only thing happening is the deathly silence of nothing to say. No, that's why I'm not going to tell it to you, this story. At least I'm not trying to do that. I'd rather describe my meeting with the woman who has eluded me for so long. A woman in red or black or orange, it doesn't matter, it's all the same. Rather talk about the possibility of disgrace, the likelihood of failure, the impossibility of transgressing. If the aim is not to explore the forbidden, to reveal some human secret, to put the unsayable into words, at the risk of finding yourself, as Eliot said, back where we started from, then it's not even worth starting. Starting then with a kneeling down and smiling as you write these words. Kneeling down is not something trivial. The beginning isn't trivial either. It's the beginning of a treasure hunt. Because what's the use of it if people say as soon as they read the first line, that's the same old subject, the same old style, the same old bleakness? I can't offer something other than the well-trodden pathways. I might as well stay silent. I should dare to show the hidden face that no one suspects. But since my flow has dried up, I can't even hope anymore to find a possible way forward in these pages. The novelist's aim is to hide as much as possible behind the words. But if by chance the desire of self-revelation should take hold, he'll do this in such a way that no one will recognize the truth. Beware of the novelist's lies. Is that okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ananda Devi. And now, Vaidehi will read a short story for you in Kannada and then in English.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. Namaskar of Karnataka people too. I'm going to read the story Ammachi Emba Nenapu. A memory called Ammachi. Ammachi is a depiction of a young girl, young fatherless girl, who is imbued with a spirit of rebellion and a strong sense of individuality. Apparently subdued throughout her childhood by Venkapaya and later raped by him, she is forced to marry him. Thus goes the story. I will read the end point of it. The whole story is narrated through the childhood memory of the narrator, and I have written this story in Kannada in the dialect of my mother's side. My mother is from Bantwal Taluk of Karnataka. There is a special dialect which is a mixture of Tulu and Malayalam and Kannada. I have used that dialect in this. I am going to read the end part of the story in Kannada and then in English. ಎಂಟು ದಿನ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲವಂತೆ. ತಿರುಪತಿಗೆ ಹೋದದ್ದಂತೆ. ವರ್ಷಂಪತಿ ತಿರುಪತಿಗೆ ಹೋಗವ್ವ, ಇಂಥವ್ರನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಬೇಕಲ್ಲ, ಆ ತಿರುಪತಿ ದೇವರು ಅವಂಗೆ ಕಷ್ಟ, ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಎನ್ನುವಳು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ. ಆ ಒಡ್ಡನಿಗೆ ಅವ ಶಾಪ ಕೊಡಗು, ಊರಿಗೆ ಹೋದದ್ದೇ ಸುಟ್ಟು ಬೂದಿಯಾಗು, ಅಥವಾ ಆ ಪರಶುರಾಮ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಂಜಲ್ ಹೋಗುವ ಕಾಗೆ ಆಗು ಅಂತ. ಅಷ್ಟು ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ನಾನು ವರ್ಷಂಪ್ರತಿ ಊರಿಗೆ ಹೋಪೆ, ತಿರುಪತಿಗೆ ಹೋಪೆ. ಆದರೆ ದೇವರಿಗೆ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಇರಬೇಕಲ್ಲ, ಇಂಥವರಿಗೂ ವರ ಕೊಡ್ತಾ, ಯಾರಿಗೆ ನಾಮ ಹಾಕಿರೂ ಪಾಪ ಬರದ ಹಂಗೆ ಎನ್ನುವಳು. ಅವ ಹೆಂಗೂ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಬಾ ಕುದ್ರಳನ್ನ ಕೋಣೆಗೆ ಹೋಪ, ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ಬೇಯ್ತದ ಕಾಂಬ ಎಂದು ಪಿಸುವಾಗಿ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಕರೆದು ಅವನ ಕೋಣೆಗೆ ಹೋದಳು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಇತ್ತು ಏನು ಇಲ್ಲ ಕಂಡವರು ಯಾರು? ಕಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಮೊದಲು ಬಿದ್ದದ್ದೇ ಅವನ ಶರ್ಟು, ಗೂಟದ ಮೇಲೆ ನೇತಾಡುತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಓ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ಎರಡೂ ಕೈ ಅಲ್ಲಾಡಿಸಿಕೊಂಡು ಗೂಟಲೆ ನೇತಾಡ್ತು ಕಾಣಿಯ ಎಂದು ನಕ್ಕಳು. ಶರ್ಟನ್ನು ಮುಟ್ಟಲೇ ಅಸಹ್ಯವೆಂಬಂತೆ ದೂರದಿಂದ ಕೈ ನೀಡಿ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ ತೆಗೆದಳು. ಓಡು, ಅಮ್ಮಂಗೆ ಕಾಣ್ದ ಹಾಗೆ ಕತ್ತರಿ ಸೂಜಿ ನುಳುತ್ತಾ ಎಂದಳು. ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ 3 ಗಂಟೆ. ಸೀತತ್ತೆ ಮಲಗಿದ್ರು. ನಾನು ಗಾಳಿ ಹೊಕ್ಕಂತೆ ಹಾರಿ ಎಲ್ಲ ತಂದು ಕೊಟ್ಟೆ. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಕರಕ್ಕನೆ ಶರ್ಟಿನ ಹಿಂಭಾಗ ಕೊಯ್ದಳು, ಮುಂಭಾಗ ಹೊಲಿದಳು. ಮುಂಭಾಗದ ಗುಂಡಿಗೆ ಹಿಂಭಾಗಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಇಟ್ಟಳು. ಇದ್ದ ರೆಡಿ ಕೋಡಂಗಿ ಶರ್ಟು, ತಿರುಪತಿಯಿಂದ ವಾಪಸ್ಸು ಬಂದವಂಗೆ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಎಂದು ಪುನಃ ಗೂಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು ಹಾಗೆ ತೂಗು ಹಾಕಿದಳು. ನನ್ನ ರವಕೆಗೆ ರಮಾ ಟೀಚರ್ ಹತ್ರ ಹೋಗಿ ಮಸರತ್ತು ಮಾಡ್ತ ಅಂದರೆ ಹಿಂಗ ನಾ ಸುಲಭಂದು ಮಾಡಿಂಡ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ನೀನು ಎಂದು ಹಲ್ಲು ಕಡಿದಳು. ತಿರುಪತಿಯಿಂದ ಬಂದ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ಹಾ ಹೂ ಹೋ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾ ಮೆಟ್ಟಲು ಹತ್ತಿದ. ಅಲ್ಲಿನ ಒಡೆ ಲಾಡು ಮೊಸರನ್ನ ವರ್ಣನೆ ಮಾಡಿದ. ಮಂಡೆ ಬೋಡ್ಸಿಂಬ ಕೆಲಸವೇ ಇಲ್ಲ ಎಂಬಂಗೆ ಎಂದು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ತನ್ನ ತೃಪ್ತಿಗೆ ತನ್ನೊಳಗೆ ಛೇಡಿಸಿ ಹಿಲಾರಿ ಹಿಡಿಯುವುದರ ಗೋಚರವೇ ಆಗದೆ ಆವೇಶದಿಂದ ಅಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ಹತ್ತಿರ ಒಂದು ತಾನು ಹೋಟೆಲ್ ಇಡುವ ಸುದ್ದಿಯನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿದ. ಕೆನ್ ಫಾಲೋ ಕನ್ನಡ? ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಇನ್ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಫಾರ್ 4 months. ತಿಳಿಸಿದ, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ದೇವರೇ ಅಷ್ಟಪ್ಪ ದೂರ ಎಂದು ಸೀತತ್ತೆ ಉದ್ಗರಿಸಿದ್ರೆ, ಇಟ್ಟರೆ ದೂರ ಎಡಗು, ದುಡ್ಡು ಮಾಡಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಊರಿಗೆ ಬರಗು ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ತಿಳುವಳಿಕೆ ಹೇಳುವ ದಾಟಿಲಿ ತನ್ನ ಭಯಂಕರ ಪ್ಲಾನ್ ವಿವರಿಸಿದ. ಅಬ್ಬ ಭಂಡಾರ ಅಂತೂ ಹೋತು ಅಂತಾಯ್ತು ಎಂದಳು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ. ಪ್ರಸಾದದ ಗಂಟು ಬಿಚ್ಚಿ ಸೀತತೆ ಕೈಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟು, ಎಲ್ಲ ತಕಣಿ ಮುಂಚ ಬುದ್ಧಿ ಸಮ ಆತ ಕಾಂಬ ಎಂದು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿನ ನೋಡಿ ಹೇಳಿ ಸ್ನಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋದ. ಸ್ನಾನ ಮುಗಿಸಿ ಬಂದು, ಇನ್ನು ಊಟ ಊಟ ಊಟ, ಎಂಥ ಹಸಿತು ಅಂದರೆ ಈಗ ಬಂದೆ ಶರ್ಟ್ ಹಾಕಿಂಡು ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾ ಕೋಣೆಗೆ ಹೋದ. ಹೊರಗೆ ಬಂದದ್ದು ರಾವಣಾಸುರ. ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಸೂಟೆ ಆ ಮಾರಿ ಹಾಂಕಾರಿ ಅವಳ ಸತ್ಯನಾಶ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಡ್ತೆ. ಕೂಗಿಗೆ ಹೆದರಿ ಉಪ್ಪರಿಗೆ ಮೆಟ್ಟಿಲ ಮೂಲೆಗೆ ಓಡಿ ಕುಳಿತುಕೊಂಡ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಅನಾಮತ್ತು ಎತ್ತಿ, ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳ್ತೀಯಾ ಇಲ್ಲ 2 ಬಾರ್ಸಕ. ಸೀತತ್ತೆ ಗಾಬರಿಯಿಂದ, ಎಂತ ಏನಾಯ್ತೀಯ ಬರ್ತರೊಳಗೆ, ಆ ರಂಡ ಎಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತು ಅಂದರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಉತ್ತರಿಸದೆ ಹಿಡಿತ ಇನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಬಿಗಿ ಮಾಡಿ, ಹೇಳು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಅದು ಅಂದು ಮತ್ತೆ ಕೂಗಿದ. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಎಂದು ಕೂಗಿದೆ ನಾನು. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಬಂದು ತಳಿಕಂಡಿಗೆ ಹೊರಗೆ ಕಿಲಿ 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 ನಗುತ್ತಾ ನಿಂತದ್ದು ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತು. ಏನು ತಿರುಪತಿಗೆ ಹೋದೆ ಕಣ್ಣು ಮೇಲಾಯ್ತಾ? ನಾನು ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇದ್ದೆ ಕಾಣ್ತಿಲ್ಲಯ್ಯ, ಆ ಮಗುನ ಯಾಕೆ ಹಿಂಸೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೆ? ಆಗ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಧಡಕ್ಕ ಹೊತ್ತು ಹಾಕಿ, ಏನಂದೆ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾ ಅವಳತ್ತ ನುಗ್ಗಿ ಅವಳ ಜಡ ಬುಡಕ್ಕೆ ಕೈ ಹಾಕಿ ದರದರ್ನ ಎಳೆಯುತ್ತಾ ಸೀದಾ ತನ್ನ ಕೋಣೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಬಾಗಿಲು ಹಾಕಿಕೊಂಡ. ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಏನಪ್ಪ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ, ನನಗೆ ಕಾಮಿಗೆ ಆತಿಲ್ಲೆ. ಎಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ಬಾಗಿಲುತ್ತಾರೆ, ಎಂತ ಮಾರಾಯ ಇದು, ಅಯ್ಯೋ ಮಾರಿ ಹೆಣ್ಣೆ ಎಂದು ಎದೆ ಬಡದಂತ ಕೂಗಿದಳು ಸೀತತ್ತೆ. ಕ್ಷಣದಲ್ಲಿ ಕೋಣೆಯ ಬಾಗಿಲು ತೆರೆಯಿತು. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಹೊರಬಂದಳು. ಮುಖ ದಗಿಸ್ತಿತ್ತು, ತುಟಿ ಒಡೆದು ರಕ್ತ ಒಸರುತ್ತಿತ್ತು. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ರಕ್ತ ಹೆಪ್ಪಾದ ಧ್ವನಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂಗಿಕೊಂಡರೆ ಅದು ಕೇಳೇ ಇಲ್ಲವೆಂಬಂತೆ ನಿಧಾನವಾಗಿ ಒಳಕೊಣೆತ ನಡೀತಿದ್ದ ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಸೀತತ್ತೆ ತಿರುಗಿ, ನೀ ಸಾಯಿ, ನೀ ಯಾಕೆ ಇರ್ತದ, ನನ್ನ ಕೊಲ್ಲುಗ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾ ಬಾಗಿಲು ಹಾಕಿಕೊಂಡಳು. ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ಕೋಣೆಯೊಳಗೆ ಗುಮ್ಮ ಕುಳಿತ. ಸತ್ತೇ ಹೋದವರಲ್ಲದೆ ಕಂಬ ಕೊರಗಿದ ಸೀತೆಯನ್ನು ಕಂಡು ಇನ್ನಷ್ಟು ಭಯವಾಯಿತು. ಸೀತತ್ತೆ ನಂದಿದ ದನ್ನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಳಿದಳು, ಹೋ ಮಗ, ನೀ ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗು, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಡದೆ ಹೇಳಡ ಅಕ್ಕ ಹೇಳಗ. ಆಗ ಇಲ್ಲ ಖಂಡಿತ ಹೇಳುವುದಿಲ್ಲ ಎಂದಿದ್ರು. ಯಾರ ಹತ್ತಿರವೂ ಒಂದು ಶಬ್ದ ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳದಿದ್ದರು. ಮಾರನೇ ದಿನವೇ ಊರ ತುಂಬ ಅದು ಹೇಗೆ? ನನಗಾದ ಆಶ್ಚರ್ಯಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದು ಮಿತಿಯೇ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಕೆಲವರು ನನ್ನ ಬಾಯಿ ಬೀಳಿಸಲು ಪರಿಯಾಗಿ ಯತ್ನಿಸಿದರೂ ನಾನು ಏನೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲವೆಂದು ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಟಿಸಿದೆ. ಮಕ್ಕಳಿಗೆ ನಟನೆ ಬರುವುದಿಲ್ಲ ಎನ್ನುತ್ತಾರೆ. ಹಾಗೇನಿಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದು ಬಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ನಟಿಸುವುದು ಚಿಕ್ಕಂದಿನಲ್ಲಿ. ಮತ್ತೆ ಅದದ್ದಿಷ್ಟೇ. ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ತಿರುಪತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಟೆಲ್ ಇಟ್ಟ. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿಗೂ ವೆಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯನಿಗೂ ಮದುವೆ ಆಯಿತು. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ತಿರುಪತಿಗೆ ಹೋದಳು. ಜೀವ ಇದ್ದರೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಕಾಣ್ತೀನಿ ನಿನ್ನ, ಬೇಜಾರು ಮಾಡಿನಳೆ, ಶಾಲೆಗೆ ಹೋಯ್ದು ಪಾಠ ಓದಿ ಹುಷಾರಾಗು ಎಂದು ಹೊರಟು ಹೋದಳು. ಶಾಲೆ ಮನೆಯ ನಡುವೆ ದಿನ ಹೊದ್ದದ್ದೇ ತಿಳಿಯುವುದಿಲ್ಲ. ಒಂದು ದಿನ ನೋಡುತ್ತೇನೆ ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಬರುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾಳೆ. ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಕಿಟಕಿ ದಂಡೆಯಿಂದ ಒಮ್ಮೆಲೆ ಹಾರಿ ನಾನು ಹೊರಗೋಡಿ ಅವಳ ಬೆನ್ನು ಹಿಡಿದೆ. ಕೈ ಚೀಲ ತೆಗೆದುಕೊಂಡೆ. ಅವಳು ಟ್ರಂಕು ಹಿಡಿದುಕೊಂಡು ಮುಂಚಿನಂತೆಯೇ ಏನೂ ಆಗದ ಹಾಗೆ ರೈಲು, ಬಸ್ಸು, ತಿರುಪತಿ ದೇವರ ಕೈ, ನಾಮ, ತಮ್ಮ ಹೋಟೆಲು, ದೋಸೆ, ಪೂರಿ, ಇಡ್ಲಿ, ವಡೆ ಇತ್ಯಾದಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಮುಂದೆ ನಡೆದಳು. ಅವಳಿಗೆ ಹೇಳಲು ನನ್ನ ಬಳಿ ಒಂದು ಸುದ್ದಿ ಇತ್ತು. ಕೃಪಿಂದ ನುಡಿದೆ, ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ಶಂಬಟ್ಟನ ಮಗ ಸೇಸ ಬಂದಿದ, 4 ದಿನ ಆಯಿತು, ಇನ್ನೂ ಅವ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ಇರ್ತಾಮ್ರು, ಮಾಯಿ ಹೇಳಿರು. ನಡೀತಿದ್ದ ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ ನಿಂತಳು. ಹಿಂತಿರುಗಿ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಳು. ಏನು ಹೇಳಿದಳು ಪುನಃ ಮರುಕಳಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುವಂತೆ. ನನ್ನನ್ನೇ ನೋಡುತ್ತಾ, ಸಾಯಡು, ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಯಡು, ಸತ್ತು ಮಣ್ಣು ತಿನ್ನಡು ಎಂದಳು. ಅರ್ಥವಾಗದೆ ಪಿಳಿ ನೋಡಿದ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ತಬ್ಬಿಕೊಂಡು, ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಸಾಯಡಿಯ, ನಾವಿಬ್ಬರೇ ನಾ ಮಾತಾಡಿಗೆ, ನೀ ನೆಗಾಡಿಗೆ. ಶಿಲೆಕಲ್ಲಿನಂತೆ ಕಂಡಳು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ. ನಗುವುದಿರಲಿ, ನಗೆ ಎಂಬುದು ಮೂಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಸುರುಟಿ ಹೋಗಬೇಕು. ಹಾಗೆ ಅಂತೂ ಮನೆ ಬಂತು. ಸೀತತೆಗೂ ಅಷ್ಟು ದೂರದಿಂದಲೇ ಅವಳನ್ನು ಕಂಡವರೇ ಬೆನ್ನಿಗೆ ಕೈ ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಹಿಮ್ಮುಖ ಬಾಗಿ ಬಾಯಿ ಕಳೆದು ನಿಂತೇ ಬಿಟ್ಟರು. ಹತ್ತಿರ ಬರ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಏನು ರಂಡೆ, ಎಂತ ಮಾಡಿಂಡೆ ಎಂದರು ಗುಮಾನಿ ಬಂದಂತೆ. ಒಬ್ಬಳೆ ಬರದೆ ಮತ್ತೆಂತ ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ, ನಾನು ಅಲ್ಲಿದ್ದು, ಇನ್ನು ಎಂಕಪ್ಪಯ್ಯ ನೇಣು ಹಾಕಿಂಡ ಎಂದಳು ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚಿ. ಸೀದಾ ಕಲ್ಲು ಮರೆಗೆ ಇದ್ದಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ನೀರನ್ನು ಮುಖಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಮಿಸಿ ಬಡಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತಾ ತಿರುಗಿ ತಾಯಿಯನ್ನು ನೋಡಿದಳು. ಸರಗಿಂದ ಮುಖ ಒರೆಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತಾ ಎಡಲಿ ನನ್ನನ್ನು ನೋಡಿ ನಕ್ಕಳು. ಯಾಕೋ ತಟಕ್ಕನೆ ನಾನು ವಾಚಾಮಗೋಚರವಾಗಿ ಬೈಗುಳ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ದ ಸೀತತೆ ಮುಖ ನೋಡಿದೆ. ಅವರ ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಆ ಬೈಗುಳದ ಗಾವು ಇರಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ನಾನು ಈಗ ಏನು ಕಂಡರೂ ಅದು ಇವತ್ತಿನ ನನ್ನ ಹಮ್ಮಲಕ್ಕೆ ಅನುಸಾರವಾಗಿ ಇರುವುದರಿಂದ ಹಾಗೆ ಇಣುಕುವುದನ್ನು ನಿಲ್ಲಿಸುತ್ತೇನೆ. ಸರಗಿಂದ ಮುಖ ಒರೆಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತಾ ಎಡೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಮಿಣಕ್ಕನೆ ಮುಚ್ಚಿ ತೆರೆದು ನಕ್ಕ ಅಮ್ಮಚ್ಚೆ ಕಣ್ಣುಗಳನ್ನೇ ನೆನೆಯುತ್ತೇನೆ. Venkapaya returned from Tirupati. Ha ha ho, he climbed the stairs announcing his arrival. He began to describe the Tirupati vadas, laddus, the curd rice to us. He doesn't have to worry about offering his hair to God, said Ammachi within herself. He announced his plans to open a hotel in Tirupati. Oh, that far, said Sitate. Venkapaya elaborated his good plans. If I open a hotel, it will be far away from here. I will return to the village only after making money, he said, in the manner of a man of great common sense. At last we will get rid of this rare creature, said Ammachi. Handing the prasada to Sitate, Venkapaya said, have it all of you. Then looking at Ammachi, he said, it might straighten you out, and went to have his bath. Soon he came out saying, now eat, 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 I am ravenous, but I will wear my shirt before that. And he went to his room. It was Ravana. He came out of the room. Where is that slut, that hussy, that what arrogance, I will ruin her. Panic stricken at the sound of Venkapaya's voice, I had huddled up against a corner on the stairs from where he picked me up as if I were a mouse and demanded, where is she? Tell me, or should I whack you? Unmindful of Sitate's alarmed queries, what is it? What happened? What is it now? What did the whore do this time? Venkapaya went on tightening his grip on me and bellowing, come on, tell me, where is she? Ammachi, I shrieked. Ammachi came out and leaning against the window, stood laughing. What? She asked. After going to Tirupati, have your eyes become topsy-turvy? I have been here all the while. Can't you see? Why do you torture the child? Venkapaya dropped me with a thud and growled. What did he say? What did he say? He advanced towards Ammachi, caught her by the hair and dragged her into his room and shut the door. Ayo, what is this? What is all this? I can't bear this, to see this Venkapaya, open the door. Ayo, the shrew, called Sitate as if her very heart would break. A while later, the door opened. Ammachi came out. Her face was aflame. Blood was oozing out from her lip. Ammachi, blood. My terrified shout did not evoke any reaction from Ammachi, who was heading very slowly towards the inner room. And then she turned to look at Sitate and spat out the words, die, why are you alive, to kill me? She closed the door behind her. Venkapaya remained sitting inside. It frightened me to look at Sitate, who sat transfixed, leaning against a pillar as if dead. Sitate, in a voice full of pain, Sitate said, go child, go home. Don't tell anybody what you saw here. You won't, will you? I promised Sitate not to say anything to anyone. Although I didn't breathe a word to anyone, the entire village knew about it the very next day. How did that happen? My surprise knew no bounds. When people had tried in various ways to get something out of me, I pretended such innocence. They say children are capable of pretense. Come to think of it, we all pretend best as children. Now let me tell you what happened. Ammachi and Venkapaya were married. Venkapaya opened his hotel in Tirupati. Ammachi went away with him. If I am alive, I will see you again. Don't be upset. Go to school, study hard, become a big person, she told me, caressing my hair, and then she walked away as if everything was over. But even I had believed that everything was over. School, home, between the two one doesn't realize the number of days that pass. Then one day, whom do I see? Ammachi. Ammachi, Ammachi. I jumped from the window and ran. I took the handbag from her. Holding the trunk in her hand, walking ahead of me, she talked breathlessly of the buses, trains, Tirupati, the deity's hand, the namam on his forehead, the hotel, dosas, puris, idlis, vadas, all in her characteristically nonchalant voice, as if nothing has happened. I had something to tell her. In a voice of full enthusiasm, I said, Ammachi, Shambhata's son Shesha is here. It is 4 days now since he came. He is going to stay here now. Mai says. Ammachi stopped and turned to look at me as if trying to recall what she had just heard. Her eyes fixed on me. She said, let them die, all of them. Let everyone eat mud. Noticing that I was staring at her, lost, Unable to understand her words, Amachi hugged me and said, "Let everyone die, except the two of us. I will talk and you will laugh, yes?" But looking at Amachi, who resembled a stone statue, as she said, who could laugh? Finally, we reached home. Having caught sight of Amachi in the distance, Sitate was standing at the doorway, her hands supporting her back, completely dumbfounded. But as soon as we reached house, she demanded angrily, what have you come? Why have you come alone? You whore, what did you do this time? What else was I to do except come alone? Amachi said, "Your Venkapaya hanged himself." Amachi walked to the stone tub. She splashed water on her face, turned to look at her mother. Wiping the water from her face with the pallu of her sari, she looked at me with the corner of her eye. For some reason, I turned to look at Sitate, who was screaming invectives by now, but strangely, her eyes did not reflect the anger that issued from her lips. I remember those eyes even today. Did they convey anything? I often wonder. I stopped myself from looking further into those eyes. The only memory that lingers in my mind is the expression in Amachi's eyes as she wiped her face with her pallu. She was laughing from the corner of her eye.
Thank you, Vaidehi, for that wonderful reading. And now we'll open this up to the audience for any thoughts, comments, questions that you have for the authors. Yeah. Well,
thank you very much. That was wonderful reading, and it's so nice to, we're all listeners of stories, so it is really nice to sit here in a warm room for a change and listen to both of you. I had a question for you, Vaidehi. I wanted to know, actually it could be for both of you, in terms of, getting inspiration, where do you seek that inspiration and where do you get it from? It would be really nice to hear about. And you of course have a very special style of writing, and I don't understand Kannada, but when you told it in English, there is a very, it's a conversational way of telling a story. So if you could talk a little bit about your style too. Thank you.
Throughout my life, I have seen so many women who are powerless but powerful. I was brought up in a big house. House was not big. There are so many people, We were 14 children, and so many guests were coming and going. So many religious homa, havana, something was all are conducted in our house, and those women coming inside and going outside, and we are talking. Their talks, everything developed my mind, and I was grasping this one. They were all suffering from. They have no space. They have no word at all. They were all like kept inside the matchbox, but they had made space into the matchbox, and they have kept their power of voice, and they were singing, they were talking, they were doing everything. They were protecting themselves in their own way. To give you one example, I remember of a lady who was called the Tree of Songs. She was expert in wedding songs. One day she was in wedding pandal. She was sitting in the midst of other women and singing, all of them group. You know that wedding songs they sing in group, and she was not good looking. Her teeth was stretched, and she was black and stout. She was. And her husband was handsome. He came from nowhere and shouted, "Shut up!" Oh, ho, ho, singing like, see her singing, her mouth wide open. "Shut up!" She shut up immediately. He went outside and, but in his did she shut up her mouth always permanently? No. When in his absence, she used to sing to her heart's content. She used to write down the songs. She used to teach the song to the girls who are interested. And one day I asked, why should you stop? You sing. Let him do. Let us see what he will do. No, you don't know. There's a secret. You remember. It's very easy for me to rebel or defy him, but the thing is, I cannot see his face becoming small. You understand the joke of it? She is very powerful. In his absence, I'll manage my life. The thing is, if I pretend, if he thinks he is a man, what I lose if I pretend? It my pretense. I'll pretend as though I am obedient to him. Okay. It's very difficult, very difficult. See a scared woman. It's very pathetic to see a scared woman, but it's very difficult and very sad thing to see a scared man. So I am like this. There are so many theories, so many arguments, so many ways for women. They can handle their life, handling their life. They make space. Even you, as I said, even you put in the matchbox also, they will make their space. So powerful. But the thing is, the powerfulness is mistaken, taken for granted. That's the thing. See, so many men, so many women.
Whether it was Ammachi or your work Gulabi Takis, you have characters which, as you rightly pointed out, are powerful, latently powerful. Now you have given voice to many of those characters through your stories. Did you have to contain yourself in expression, or what facilitated your expression so that you can bring those characters to the fore?
It's not clear for me. It's not clear. This question is not clear for me. Please.
Would you mind repeating that concisely a little? Would you mind repeating the question concisely? So that
The characters in Gulabi Takis,
Yeah.
which was based on your story, she is very powerful. I mean,
Yeah.
the kind of conversion that she brings,
Yeah.
transformation. Of course, at the end, she is thrown out. And now Ammachi is also powerful, but in her own way, the society kind of tries to contain the power. And you have given expressions to those characters through your stories. When you started writing stories, did the society, your immediate family, put obstacles, or they encouraged? How did you
No.
negotiate that?
I had told you already, we were many children in our house, Nobody gave attention to us, whatever we do. She is writing something, they were saying. So there is no hindrance at all. We wrote and posted and it was published. Nowadays, a small thing is also explained as she writes, they said. In our time it was not at all. She is writing something, okay, I'll grind, I'll churn this one. The life was like that. So we grew. So we developed ourselves. The ekanta, the solitude of her had some meaning, Nowadays it's not like that. Of course, there are writers nowadays also, there are so many writers, but my lifeline, my travel was like that. Nobody gave attention to us. It was a blessing in disguise. Whatever write, nobody cared. Whether we passed the exam, whether we read the lessons, nobody cared. We went to the school and came back and did something. Lot of children, who will care? Who will do? It's a blessing in disguise for us people. Now the family is very small, you'll say. They are not blessed, we are blessed.
So, well, my question is to the writer of Indian Tango, ma'am, and I have more than a couple of questions here. So, I would like to ask first, what is the theme and what is the basic genre of this book, Indian Tango?
It's a novel, You know, so the theme, as I said, is around these two characters, but the novel is told in alternate chapters. So one chapter is
all those chapters lead to what?
maybe you should read it to
No, I haven't read this. That's why I'm asking it.
It leads to the recognition by this woman that all her life she's been, in a way, dictated by the rest of her family, and also by herself, perhaps, by her own acceptance of that. And even at some point, she has a son who's an adult, but whom she loves very much, and suddenly she realizes that at some point they grew apart, they don't understand each other, and after having this kind of rebirth, you could say, by meeting the writer, she tries to understand her son now in a different way. So what happens, there's just one moment in the book, and maybe you read it, I can still tell you that throughout the book, you don't know whether the narrator, the writer, is a man or a woman, and it's only at the end that you'll know. So their encounter is actually, the purpose is only to, in a way, to free Subhadra from herself, from just being all the time accepting everything and you know, making herself accept everything. So the end of the story, while her mother-in-law is preparing to go on this big pilgrimage, she has gone out, and when she comes back, she sees all the family gathering around the taxis, and she walks right past them. She doesn't stop, she doesn't go into the taxi, and she walks past, and the end of the novel is, excuse me, it's as if she's had wings that sprouted on her back. So you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe she'll come back, maybe she'll go on pilgrimage, maybe she'll, but this is just the instant of recognition that there is a kind of freedom inside us. We just have to unlock it.
Okay, and my next question is about a few lines that you read from the abstract, and these lines were about something, if I'm not wrong, about the novelist has some kind of limitation, or his aim or her aim is limited in some terms. So what do you mean by this? Like, a novelist has these limitations that you mentioned, if I'm not wrong.
The limitations of the novelists? You're asking about the limitations?
Limitations the novelist has.
I think in a way a novelist or any writer shouldn't write thinking of limitations in a way. You should attempt everything and anything, and especially not censor yourself. This is the one thing that will kill any kind of writing, is if you're thinking, oh, I'm going to offend this person, or I'm going to shock my parents, or I'm going to shock my family, or the society. So first of all, you have to write without fear. Of course, there are novelists who've been, you know, imprisoned, arrested, but they've had the courage to say what they wanted to say, and that's the first thing, because there's a kind of truth. A novel is a construction, is a kind of lie, if you like, but it's a lie that's trying to get at the core of the truth. And so you can't write from a lie, you have to write with your truth. Whatever it is, you may be wrong, but at least it's your truth. And then you sort of try to communicate with the other. So the limitations of the novel is obviously is that, you know, you have to keep learning all the time. So when you start out, you think you're doing something that's nice, and then you reread it a few years later, and you thought, my God, did I write this? This is horrible. And so you keep thinking there's still further to go. And having read so many wonderful authors throughout your life, you know that you're not there yet. You're never there. You're still going. And the hope is that maybe the next one I'll be a bit better, and the next one I'll be a bit better. So you can't rest on anything, even if you have a bit of success, not rest on any laurels, but think that the sky's the limit to what you can do, and explore writing, explore literature, but also be responsible for what you're saying, because you're saying something that's going to stay, you know, hopefully.
I'd first like to say that I had two people in my life who speak Kannada and French, and both of them were very close to me when I was growing up. So although I don't understand both languages, I felt like I was back in time, and it was very liberating to hear a session in a foreign language. So Amachi's rebellion is very in your face, it's very angsty. Subhadra's revolution is rather quiet, rebellion is rather quiet. Both of you have captured rebellions very beautifully, but how do we get to revolution?
How can we get to revolution? First, it's an internal revolution. Definitely, it's each person first has to do that incredible journey within yourself. Because very often, we talk about the oppressor and the oppressed, but in a way there's a kind of complicitness between the two, because some way the oppressed is accepting the oppression also. So we can't just say, I am oppressed and it's not my fault, it's the other's fault. In a way we have to think, well, what can I do not to be oppressed anymore? Of course it's more difficult for some than for others. You have countries where people don't have a voice, don't have a word, they can't say anything. You have women who are in situations where they can't say anything, they have no choice, they're being beaten up. But somehow, maybe we do need, first of all, to do the revolution within ourselves, and then to try to link out to others, to speak out to others, and also to think all the time of how we are affecting the other. We have children, so if are we raising our sons to be, to accept all these things that society is imposing on us? Are we raising our daughters to look at things and to interrogate things? And this is extremely important. We start with ourselves first and say, am I also complicit in this? And so that I think it will come about, but it's very difficult. It's a very slow process. So education is very important, and respect of the other, both respect of men for women and women for men. But when we talk about equality, this is an extremely important issue that is not there yet. Equality is not there. Even on a friendship level, sometimes you find people just have these prejudices against one another because we're different. Men and women are different, or somebody of another race is different. So revolution starts inside. Now, whether it has to be a violent revolution, in some cases it's impossible to do otherwise, but hopefully it's possible to do it with, a non-violent revolution would be better. But I still have hope.
And Shivaram, I had interviewed once Shivaram Karan's wife, Leela Karan, and for this question she told, who had tied you? You yourself had tied yourself. You untie yourself, you will be free. You don't want to untie yourself, that's the problem. I don't know why you are fearing to untie yourself. First you know yourself, inside you there is a very krantikari, a revolutionary person, and you are a soul, not only a woman, you are a soul. Remember it. Nobody has tied us. Nobody. And I always remember her verse, Leela Karan's verse.
My compliments to both of you. Vaidehi ji, I think it was so engaging to listen to your very vibrant reading, and a lot of us I think don't understand Kannada, but I think we somehow connected with you throughout. And Ananda, it was so beautiful in terms, it was almost poetic, and there was a very poised way in which you read, so we all were again connecting to the French we didn't understand. So first of all, compliments to both of you. In terms of the whole revolution part, I'm just trying to connect the question. Would both of you say that probably women's writing is now probably taking the feminist movement forward in terms of what we are seeing, in terms of what both of you spoke about this, the way you spoke about both these women in your own ways. I think there's always been this culture of silence and violence shrouded in patriarchy that maybe a lot of women have experienced but never spoken about, and you've drawn from a lot of other people. So do you think this is another wave in the feminist movement in the way writing, women's writing is shaping up and coming up? Just little comments from both of you.
It's a step, I think, because in a way it is putting forward the issues that everybody is aware of or talks about, but you're putting it and forcing the reader to confront things like that and to face these things. And for example, in one of my novels, I wrote from the point of view of the man who's a kind of tyrant in his family. And I had to put myself in his skin and try to sort of explain how does he live with this violence, so you have a kind of narration where he's justifying violence. So if you read it at the first level, you might think that I, as an author, I'm saying, yeah, it's fine, you go and beat up your wife or your daughter. But of course, then you have the subtext. And I wanted to force people to sort of think, do I sometimes think that way? Do I sometimes also have this kind of mental attitude? So in a way, the novel is very, very powerful, because you might be watching television and you hear a bomb has fallen and 1,000 people have died. But if you're reading a novel where you're reading about the child who's hiding under a wall and sees the bomb coming down and feels the fear, hears it, sees the dust and ashes. I mean, the novel is going to describe this and make the person be there. Make the person be the one who's dropping the bomb and the person who's receiving the bomb. And that's how we understand what's happening. So just watching the news 24 hours a day is not going to make us feel what these people are feeling. So you are really reaching out and connecting with what these human beings are feeling. But I said it's the first step because in a way, novels, I mean, we have to say they're not going to change, the whole, everyone. They might change one person, which is important, but they're not going to change everyone. So there has to be something else coming after that. And for example, women in prison or prostitutes being able to tell their stories, that's also a very important aspect where I've met some of these women, and sometimes you feel they're waiting for someone to listen to them, they have the stories, and actually it's their story we're telling. So in a way we're taking from them, but they want to tell their stories as well. So I think that would be something very important to do, is to go and listen to others and let them have a voice. We're trying to speak in a way for those who don't have a voice, but the voiceless should have their own voices again, give them back their voices.
Yes, we are waiting for Parivartana Yuga. You understand Parivartana Yuga? I think we are waiting. Very keenly we are waiting. Unless it is Parivartana, nothing will happen. The inside, the mind of the man must have some Parivartana. I think they must have some shock, some positive shock. Then only they will have some buddhi. They will treat us as souls, not only the body. Whatever we achieve, they think we are the body. I remember one interview of a very famous musician. In his interview, he tells, whenever I see a woman, I imagine how she will be without her clothes. In his Hindi, he has explained. In my English, I am explaining. You understand what I tell. Okay? In this way, after that, I lost interest in music also. I don't want his music. If he doesn't treat women like people, like soul, what is there in his music? Nothing. Music is soul actually. Then he is raping music also, in a way. I felt very, very sorry, very, very sad on that day reading that interview. This is the extreme end of man's mind. It must get changed. How can we change it? We cannot change. They themselves, it is their pura karma. It is their pura karma. They must be blessed by God, if there is God. That much I can say. Every day we read so so much things. We are really afraid of giving birth to female children, girls, very, very difficult. We cannot believe anybody. That is the time now. We cannot believe anybody. We can leave the children. Formerly we were leaving our children and going to cinema. Now we cannot do that. We have to be with our children only. Children always. This is the tragedy of today's. What to do? Please men, please change your mind. Please treat us as souls. Journey. We are doing all doing the journey, na? Sahaprayanika. We are all. Please think that. Please be viveki, wise, good. Thank you.
And with that, we come to the end of day one of the Z Jaipur Literature Festival 2014. I would like to thank Ananda and Vaidehi for ending the note on an extremely enlightening and sensitizing note, just as we would like it had to have ended. Thank you, Rahul, for introducing them and making for an amazing session. I personally love the evening sessions because I find that people